So now let's move into a discussion of transition and problems in family life, starting with divorce. The biggest threat to marriage is divorce. And again, in the United States, 50% of marriages end in divorce. These are the top 5 reasons. The first is one of our most treasured values, individualism. We are a country that promotes the freedom of the individual rights and liberties. But you can't have all those individual freedoms without individualism. So, when people are so individualistic that they don't compromise, they don't include their spouse in their everyday life, they become very selfish in a relationship. That can lead to divorce. Secondly, romantic love fades. People fall in love, they fall out of love. So when the romance is dead, so is the marriage. Third, women are more independent. So some have said, marital researchers have said that women becoming so independent in today's time can sometimes make a man feel unneeded or neglected, and that may lead to divorce or problems in a relationship. And then there's the stress of marriage in today's society. We're living in very stressful times, especially with the pandemic we're dealing with through COVID-19, which has forced a lot of couples to work from home. So instead of having that time apart during the workday, they now have to live in the same house. And if they haven't been getting along and they're being stressed out economically because there are a lot of people being laid off, well, I think you can see where this goes. This can lead to a breakdown of the marital relationship. And then fifth and finally, divorce is socially acceptable and easier to get. Gone is the stigma of being divorced. A lot of people divorce these days, so it's not shocking anymore. And back in the day, if you wanted to divorce your spouse, if you were a woman and you wanted to divorce your husband on the grounds of infidelity, you had to have proof. So I didn't know if they had a Joey Greco from Cheaters chasing people around with a camera to catch him cheating, but you had to have proof before a judge would grant you a divorce. So now we have irreconcilable differences, which means that a couple can divorce for just about any reason. Now, remarriage. 4 or 5 divorced people remarry within 5 years. So we divorce a lot, but we also like marriage, so we do remarry. Half of all marriages in the U.S. are remarriages for at least one of the partners. So if you go to a wedding of someone who is older than 35, chances are somebody's been married before. Men are more likely to remarry than women. Now, why do you think that is? Is it because men just love marriage so much? That's a probability issue. Men are more likely to remarry than women because women are always willing to remarry. So if a man is divorced and he doesn't have custody of his kids, he has the freedom to date, to travel, to see other people, and become involved in other relationships. If a woman divorces and she has custody of the kids, some men may be reluctant to attach himself to what they call a ready-made family. So it becomes more difficult for a woman to find a spouse the second time around. But because women are so willing to remarry, if a man is divorced and he says, hey, I want to get married again, you'll have some women say, marry me. And then there's family violence. The family has been referred to by some researchers as the third most violent group in society. So who are the other two? The military and the police, where you would expect violence to be commonplace. But some of the most or minimize, that's what I want to say, minimize violence in the family is violence between siblings, where brothers and sisters are kind of beating each other up. So there's violence in the family, but oftentimes sibling violence gets ignored. Domestic violence is underreported. About 700,000 people are victims each year. And when I say people, I mean men too, because there are men who are battered by their spouses. 1 in 3 female victims of homicide are murdered by male partners. So when a woman is murdered, more than likely her husband is going to be the first suspect, the first person that investigators or police detectives focus on, because more often than not, that's the person responsible for the violence committed against her. And in all 50 states, there are laws prohibiting the rape of wives, but they are not consistently or easily enforced, because if it's difficult for a woman to prove rape in a dating relationship, imagine how much more difficult it is for a woman to prove rape allegations against her own husband, where there is a legal expectation of sexual activity.